Hi everyone, thanks for coming along today. This is the second in our sessions of short FASD workshops. Today we're going to be talking about practical strategies for daily life. And the idea is that you'll be able to watch the recording later, have a look at the tip sheet to go with this session, and we're trying to deliver training in a way that's in short bits of information that fits into your week. I do want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of all the lands on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. In our last session, we talked about this model of all the elements of caring for a child or young person with FASD, and we talked about understanding the person and their behaviour, making the connection between brain and behaviour. That's really fundamental to supporting children with FASD. What do we need to know about the young person's brain? What do we know and what do we already know? And understanding what skills are missing is really important. It might be that you notice things about your child, your observations, what you notice they can or can't do. There might be things that your child's therapists or professionals notice about their skills. And there'll also be information in assessments like FASD assessments, psychology, speech, OT, and other assessments. So we really want to get a sense of what are the fundamental skills that the young person is really struggling with. We also want to remember dysmaturity. FASD is a condition where children and young people have different abilities. They don't always match their chronological age, and they can be patchy. They can be quite good at something and present like a neurotypical child or an average child in certain areas, but other areas they struggle. But these aren't visible to people. So we see a 9-year-old and we think that, well, they should have the attention skills of a 9-year-old and the language skills of a 9-year-old, but they really don't. In the last session, we also talked about the type of daily challenges that children can have. You know, the sort of memory organisation challenges that they have, just keeping track of things, the social skills challenges, you know, understanding other people's perspectives, challenges in daily life and just doing the tasks that they need to do, and the challenges involved in emotional regulation. The next step, when we're going to modify expectations, we really need to be understanding what is too hard for them right now. What is too hard for your child? And I'd say a question that I often ask carers is, what are some of the things you might say to your child or young person in the morning before they go to school? You might say, wake up, time for school. What do you want for breakfast? Sit down, please. Turn the TV off. Get your shoes. Are you dressed yet? Have you got your jumper? Put that down. Where's your bag? Brush your teeth. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Get in the car. We're going to be late. It's really important to think about the brain functions involved in all of those processes. So memory, if you have a problem with memory, you're not going to remember where your shoes are. Or they might be impulsive. They really want to watch TV. Their cognitive skills might be an issue. What does it mean to hurry? Hurry what exactly? Or there could be problems with language and verbal processing. What did she say? What am I meant to be doing? Fine motor skills might mean you have trouble getting the lid off the toothpaste. Or the planning skills. Do you put your socks on or your shoes on first? And then you have all the sensory processing issues, you know. So kids are going to hate the jumper and they're not going to even feel cold, so they don't want to wear the jumper. What we need to be thinking about is, what can we do differently? We can't change things about the child. What can we do differently? And this is where we look at the 8 magic keys. These can really help us with some practical strategies. And I'm going to focus on the morning routine. What can we make simpler? What can we make more concrete? What can we make more specific, more consistent, or more predictable? So we'll start with the waking up process. Kids with FASD can find it really hard to make transitions. From being asleep to being awake and alert can be really hard for them. So it's important to think about being slow. These kids are going to need more time, even if it means waking them up a little bit earlier, which can sound counterintuitive. You know, we want kids to be well rested. but the mornings can really set the tone for the whole day. It might be that you go in and you open up the blinds, but you don't talk to them yet. You give them time to get used to the light. You give them plenty of time to wake up. You give them a drink, a hot drink or a cold drink. Sometimes sensory things like that can help with transitions. And often say just recognizing that transitions are hard can be helpful as a carer. We can all struggle with that. We can all have that feeling of waking up in the morning and not knowing, do I need to be somewhere? Should my alarm have gone off? And it always takes us a minute to, adjust to, where we are, what day it is, what we should be doing. And that's much harder for kids with FASD. Daily routine is really important, consistency, but it's also good to consider the child's preferences because not all kids are going to be able to stick to the same routine. I worked with one family where the child would get up in the morning and had real trouble getting dressed because I think she was hungry. But in that family, you got dressed before breakfast. So we talked about, for this child, they might need to eat something before they can regulate well enough to get dressed. So it's good to think about your child's preferences. What parts of the routine do they find easier and what parts do they find harder? Visual schedules can be really helpful, and some of you have probably tried this already, and some of you may have tried and said, these don't work for my kid. I think it can be helpful to ask professionals for help to try different ways of doing it. You might try something that doesn't work at all, but a different way of doing it might have a better effect. If the schedule doesn't work for your kid, maybe they think it's too babyish, maybe they don't have enough control, or maybe they get bored. These are all things that you can adjust around. If a child thinks, having a schedule on the wall is too babyish, you might have one on an iPad or a phone that is more of an adult app on a phone. So finding ways to make things feel more mature. You might even use one yourself and role model it to your child or young person. Verbal instructions in the mornings can be really hard. Obviously, getting kids' attention and making eye contact can help, but it doesn't always help entirely. Kids with FASD really need us to use fewer words and shorter sentences. So sometimes, have you cleaned your teeth yet? It's better to just say teeth and let that word kind of sink in. Pause and give them time and be prepared to repeat yourself. We always recommend avoiding sort of abstracts like sit down or hurry up because we know what they mean, but kids don't really know what they mean. Kids with FASD can be very literal. Sit on what? Hurry up with what? Do what quicker? So it's good to be specific. Sit on your chair. Put this in your bag now. That sort of thing is being more concrete with our language can be more effective. Planning ahead is really important. And this is harder for carers, I think, because, when you're rushing kids in the morning, they're gonna perform worse. When we're well organised, it reduces the cognitive demand on the child and it can make the mornings go better. But unfortunately, it does often mean more work for carers. So it is about that balance, about the extra stuff you do at night to get ready can mean that you have a calmer start to the day. And this is something, again, that professional psych-OTs can help with, just how to simplify things. And it is tiring. I hesitate to say this because it is giving you kind of more jobs to do, if you like, but you already work really hard. So I just want to acknowledge that. Dressing can be an issue. In this example, Max, he has sensory issues. So the strategy his carers use is they don't have any clothes that he's not prepared to wear. If he won't wear them, get rid of them. You might try them again later, but don't even have them in the room if they're clothes that he won't wear. Max is a child who likes helping to choose the clothes that he's going to wear. And so using like an organiser like this can be really helpful. Not every child is going to want to do that, but some kids do. He's a child who has trouble with shoelaces, and his OT is working on it, but it's almost like he's maybe not going to learn the skill of tying shoelaces maybe for another year or so. And so having something like elastic laces, just so the morning routine is easier, means it's not like he's never going to learn to tie his shoes, but you're just not going to try and get him to learn it in the mornings when you're rushing. This is Harry. He's a different kind of kid. He likes to be in control. His mum has tried to lay his clothes out for him and use organisers. He doesn't want to do it. He wants to be in control. So her strategy might be to have a basket of clothes that he can choose from, and there's no wrong choices in there. There's nothing that's not right for the weather in there, for example. And if this is a child that's not going to want to wear a jumper, you put it in the bag and you maybe do it the night before so he doesn't see it and get triggered because he's already told you he's not cold. So why have you put a jumper in there? You know, you might need to tuck it right down the bottom. You probably know all this stuff. For breakfast, I worked with one family once and the carer would ask the child every morning, what do you want for breakfast? And she wouldn't answer. So then she would say, she'd give her a choice, cornflakes or muesli. And Kylie would say cornflakes, but then she'd see someone eating muesli and she'd get upset and say, that's what I wanted. So the carer's very frustrated. What's going on? It might be that Kylie just didn't process what Sandra was saying. She might have given an answer without really understanding, thinking about what just people feedback from someone. I'm not sure where that is. Sorry, get my mouse over to that screen. If you could mute people, Deb, that'd be great. Maybe Kylie didn't process it. Maybe she didn't really remember what cornflakes were. Maybe she saw them and went, oh, that's cornflakes, I forgot. Or maybe she just couldn't remember which one she liked better until she saw them. So what can Sandra do in this situation? Well, one example would be to simplify the choice for her. It might be offering her a visual and saying, show me what you want. This cuts out the fact that Kylie might have forgotten which is which. It makes it very concrete for her. Or you might just hold the two boxes of cereal up and go, which one do you want? Point and tell me. Or you could get a dispenser and Kylie could serve herself. This is one strategy that you can use as long as you haven't got, mice or ants or something. Obviously, every strategy's got to suit your family, but that's the sort of thing that you can do that just reduces the amount of talking about and asking about what food would you like. It becomes more of a visual. I'm just going to point and show rather than ask, remember, and express myself. So we keep coming back to the 8 magic keys. How can we make things simpler? How can we make things more concrete? How can we make things more consistent and more predictable? Sorry, that one should have been a bit earlier. I've got a playlist for you here that I've called Practical Strategies for Parents and Carers. And there's some really good videos on this that go into quite a bit of detail. I'll just stop sharing this screen and show you a couple of them because I think watching videos is a really good way. And some of these I've recommended over and over to people. So I've got one called Practical Strategies. Where's it gone? If we go to the playlists, here it is. Actually, I'll go back and get the proper list up. You've got to click on the other bit to get the list. Full playlist. So this will show you, Nate Sheets has got really good way of explaining behaviour and creating strategies. So this one's on how to help people with FASD process what we're saying. Helpful and unhelpful responses, understanding things like lying. Dan Dubovsky is really interesting. He has some really good strategies. He talks about things like only have 3 sets of clothing in a child's room and 3 toys and 3 books and put everything else away to support them because they don't always cope very well with lots of choices, too many choices of things in the house, too many choices of clothes, so that when they do, pull everything out of their cupboards, it can take hours to clean up. Whereas his strategy is putting things away in a way that there's never too much to clean up. It may only take 5 minutes to pick up the things that they've made a mess of. And so he's got a number of videos here that are quite interesting. And Nathan Orr is another great one. He talks about why kids steal and different approaches to it. And he's got some really great ideas. So this is a good playlist of different sorts of strategies. So I'd encourage you to have a look at that and dip into it. And, if you like the way someone talks, look for more of their videos because all of these presenters have really different styles.
Would you be able to put that link then up on the chat at some point, Prue?
Absolutely,
Or
I'll do it right now.
thank you.
I've got it in that handouts, and then I'll just
Oh, okay.
that I've got it on the next screen thing, but I'll
Okay, no
pop it
worries.
in the chat, which is a lot easier. There we go.
Thank you.
Um, if I finish sharing, yes. Sorry, this setup is not working so well for me today. So let's have a few questions. I can see someone's asked about certificates. We can do certificates for people. That's really something for us to chat about, Deb, if that's something people would like. There'll be quite a few different ones is all. So we can sort of think through that one. Deb, whatever, I'll be guided by PCAF on that.
I'm happy to create a certificate for someone who needs it. That's fine.
That's probably a good way to do it. Um, So, what did people think of those sort of strategies? I guess I don't know your kids, so the strategies themselves might not apply to every child, but I'd be really interested to hear what people have tried and what's worked and not worked for you at different times.
Hi, hi, Prue. Trish Lawrence here.
Trish,
How are you?
how are you?
I'm well, thank you. No, thank you. That was really good. I actually had so many giggles, not because it was funny, but because it was my life.
Really?
Just the like the clothing in the bedroom. Like I go in there every day. I said only this morning to my family.
Yeah.
I feel like all I do is just pick up mess from my son, like because
Mhm.
every room he enters turns into a
Yeah.
catastrophe, like
Yeah.
he's looking for something, and
Yeah.
this morning I went up to the laundry, he's looking for a band-aid and the entire kit is just over the entire laundry bench, and I'm just thinking, oh, this is just going to take so long.
Yeah. It's
So,
huge. The amount of
um,
work you have to do from the mess
yeah,
that's
I've never,
generated.
yeah, the workload has, and all of a sudden things to seem to have increased for him.
Mm.
Like the behaviors just are more increased. So
Yeah.
I thought they were really good practical things because I think that's what I need to do is
Hmm.
get stuff out of his room.
Yeah.
Um, and toys and things. I know he doesn't use half of them. I have tried to
Yeah.
get rid of them, but you see, he doesn't want to get rid of anything either because
Yeah.
it's familiar. And it's a really hard balance of, well, how do
Yeah.
you remove?
Having I think one of the things you can do is those, boxes that you box it up, but some kids will let you box stuff up for later. Other kids, if they see it, they want to play with it right now. So that
Yeah,
doesn't always work. But boxing things up and going, we're going to use this one in February and we'll swap this one in March. Some kids really need a sense of control over that, or at least to know that the thing will come back. Um, but you can also just, put things away to tidy them and just make them a little bit harder to get to. The sort of tubs in the garage sort of model where you bring a box out and you put another box away, and it does increase the novelty of some toys, and clothes as well. You can do that with. Um, but I think for any of us, sometimes less choices is better. If you go on holiday and you've only got a suitcase of clothes, you can manage with that for quite a long time often. And then you get back home and you realize you forget all these things that you've got that you look at but never actually wear. I always have a collection of t-shirts that I don't want to wear, but I don't want to throw them out. So, um, you might set a bit of a challenge and go, okay, we're going to keep our 10 favorite t-shirts. We're going to put the rest away. So turning things into games can be a good way to do it.
yeah, thank you. And can I just ask one more question about
Yeah.
schedule? Um, the schedule thing is really hard because whilst they need structure and like it, because I know that he gets
Yeah.
extremely upset when it's not to schedule, but following the schedule is really difficult as well.
Yep.
Like just the, teeth
Yep.
brushing. I mean, I can't even get him to brush his teeth, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
so sometimes like those charts will make him irate
Yep.
because he sees it
Yes.
as a demand.
Demand, exactly.
So
And
I
this
think
is
that's
where
a hard one.
sometimes you do put that away. Like I think the thing with FASD, and maybe the 8 magic keys is misleading. There is no magic key. Something will work for a little while and then it will stop working because kids lose interest in it really quickly. And I think there's something about FASD where kids don't get as much satisfaction from success in different things. They don't get the same reward sort of stimulus that makes them want to do it again. They'll do it and then go, yep, I don't need to ever do that again. So in a way, we have to keep the variety there and the novelty, because often kids will do better in a novel situation.
Yeah.
I noticed that Judith has put in the chat, visual chats work for a bit and then they didn't. You tried Google saying good morning time to get dressed and clean your teeth. That'll work until it didn't. And I think this is really important. What I always say to carers is as soon as you've got one strategy that starts to work, start working on the next 2 strategies for when that one stops working. Because at least then you're prepared and you don't feel as disappointed. And that might be all that you can control is your disappointment when you think a strategy is going to work and it doesn't work anymore. Because they really need that novelty to keep on track, which is why sometimes they'll do things for someone but not for you because it's a bit novel. Or they'll do something in a different environment. I knew kids that would go to respite and they would dress themselves, but at home they never did. And so these were kids still involved with child protection. So they had, workers saying, well, maybe the carers are doing too much for them because look what they can do in respite. They won't do it at home. And I was always sort of sticking up for the carers going, it's the novelty of the new environment that means they're prepared to try something different. It's like when we go on holiday and suddenly you're thinking, I could do 20,000 steps a day. You're not going to do it when you get home, no matter what. Timers are a good thing. Lisa's mentioned timers. If you wanted to say anything more about how you use them and what aspect of timers really helps.
Hi, Prue. So our Google Nest is our best friend, and we have one in both living areas. And it's explained to her when that alarm goes off, you need to finish your breakfast and start dressing. I've got 2 children with disabilities, one who can't dress herself, Mackenzie, my youngest, who has FAS, also in kinship care, can dress herself, but there are times if she's needing that feel, Mummy, can you dress me? Knowing very well we're time poor. So then it becomes a game. So it's like, oh, I can do this before you. I wasn't yet dressed and neither was she, and we were really on the time today. So I have to change the way I word it. She was adamant she was wearing these pants to school this morning. They were not school color, they were not going to school, and they were dirty.
Not committed to that meeting.
I had given her 2 options. One, I will take the older child to school and come back and get you, and when you are ready for school, we will go.
Yep.
Or you need to get changed. Left her with that. She was upset, so I left her with it and then came back. We still went changed. I wasn't dressed yet, so I'm like, I'm going to beat you. And I ran in and I quickly tried to get changed and I went a little bit slower and I could hear her coming in and then bang, she was dressed.
That's great.
Every day is different.
Tough work. Every day, yeah.
Every day is different. Sometimes the timers will work, and if they don't work, we do a game. If they don't work, I fully understand what you're saying about at other people's houses where there's things she won't do here, but with her support workers, she will. We are finding too, they are so smart. These kids with FAS, they are so clever. So she's working out when she's with her support worker. She thinks she's missing out on something at home. So she's like, tired now, I want to go home. She's not tired at all.
Yeah.
She just wants to come home to see what everybody else is doing, which is incredibly cluey. But definitely clocks definitely help. If you can't do the clock, a game. And they like to be fast and they like to be first.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think that thing when they're worried about what other kids are doing at home, my inclination would be, say everyone is sitting down doing maths homework together. We like pick the least appealing thing, But obviously she may know that may or may not be true. You might have to fake it. Tina.
Oh, hello, Prue. Yeah, it's been very interesting. My son was born with NAS,
Yeah.
sounding so
Neonatal abstinence syndrome. Yeah.
so much like this.
Yeah.
Um,
Has he ever been assessed for FASD as well?
no, alcohol wasn't really part of it.
Yeah. I guess what we find is, and this is just a quick generalisation, working at the clinic that I work at Monash Children's, we see many kids who have other substances, and the alcohol's not really reported on at the time, but often it's present as well as other drugs. So things like opiates that might cause abstinence, withdrawal. These cause children to withdraw at birth, and they can lead to behavioural challenges, but usually not to the extent and the degree of children with FASD. So I'm not saying that all children with developmental challenges who've had drug exposure have also had alcohol exposure, but I'd say at least half of them have, because alcohol is such a common substance in society. And so I always think it's worth exploring that. I do a lot of trawling through health records for children and antenatal records to find that evidence that alcohol was also a factor.
I know the parents, and I know that they were drug users, but not alcohol wasn't their drug. So I mean, but
often what people say when I interview workers and families is they'll say, oh, that wasn't their substance. They weren't alcoholics. I say, would they have had a few drinks? Oh yeah, they would have had a few drinks on the weekend, but they weren't drinkers. And that's the difference. A few drinks might be 3 cans of mixed drinks, which is like 5 standard drinks. So it's people often not known to be using alcohol. It's something to explore, with health records and eyewitnesses and things like that, if you think it's a concern, because neonatal abstinence syndrome is really a syndrome immediately after birth. It doesn't necessarily have long-lasting effects. It's more about children being very unsettled and, needing medication to calm their bodies. What are the long-term effects of opiates, methamphetamine, cannabis? There are some effects.
Definitely. Yeah, they sound to me. Yeah. My son has a lot of the things you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So depending on the spread, I would always look for alcohol as well in that history, just because we know it was often not written down or not asked about at the time. I can see Heather's asked about her 11-year-old's teacher is giving her complex multi-step tasks. I think that's really about education for the teachers, and there is a good website. It's called Learning with FASD. Oh, now is it .com or .org? I've just got to check this one. It is .org. I'll copy this into the chat. I would be really steering... sorry, let me pull this up. Steering your child's teachers to this website and getting them to organise, an in-service or something, even for the team, to talk about FASD. Getting documentation of alcohol in pregnancy. It really needs, it's health services are the ones that are most likely to get it, particularly if there was child protection, they're no longer involved. So doctors can put in requests through the Child Information Sharing Scheme for records for children. There might be maternal records that you're not eligible to see, but that your child's doctor could review for you. It's really about probably finding a health practitioner who's willing to do that investigation. So psychologists could potentially do that. I don't really know the limits of the scheme in terms of who can request it, but health services can definitely request it. We should probably finish up, but the last thing that I'll mention is and I'll put this in the handout as well, No FASD has a parent carer toolkit and has a lot of different strategies for these sort of situations. And what I often recommend to carers is to, print a few of these things out and then cross off all the ones that you think, that's not my kid, and really look at what's left. Circle the ones that remain and have a look at whether there's something there that you could try. And getting you're engaging the professional, especially OT. Often OTs will go and do their therapy, but if you can get them to work with you on really specific scenarios, like the morning routine, the after school routine, that's really where we want the OT input to be, not just building the child's skills at school. That's great, but that's going to take a really long time. But supporting you to make changes in the home and have the next plan ready is probably what I would be recommending as much as possible. Okay, well, we'd probably better finish up. I'm sorry that the display was a little bit mucked up at the start, and I might offer Deb to just re-record that for people. We'll see what you think when you see the recording, yeah?
I've just also put a survey link in the chat if anyone, if you could all actually participate and just give us some feedback. It just also gives you an opportunity to say what else you'd like to hear about in relation to FASD or learn more about, and to give us some feedback so that we can continue to deliver these in a timely manner that suits you and also on point as to what you actually would like to, information you'd like to learn about. And there's the QR code if you prefer to just hover that over your camera. That's another option. But we really appreciate the feedback. It really helps us to create then sessions that you actually need to learn about.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. Hope that's been helpful. And look forward to seeing you at the next one, which will be in 2026, I think, Deb.
That's right.